Jeremy Johnson wins his second championship in the Mexican Football League. Auburn Softball hires their pitching coach. And we're here for our Week 2 installment of our Way Too Early preview series against Cal. All that and more right here on the College Loop Podcast.
You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast. This is 213 of the College Loop Podcast. I'm Don Larck, on Twitter. And of course, as I said before, we are here today to talk to y'all about the Week 2 in some of the Way Too Early series. But before we get that, we got some little bit of news to talk about. A year ago, probably close to the day, we first announced the fact that Jeremy Johnson won the championship from the La Liga Football Americano. He did it again. Jeremy Johnson is the GOAT of this league. It's crazy to talk about. Getting the recognition he deserves. Of course, he still is coaching at Montgomery Academy as the running backs coach. Of course, Jeremiah Cobb, a former alum of the Jeremy Johnson running back school. But just huge shout out to Jeremy Johnson. As a huge Jeremy Johnson fan myself, he was, of course, one of the first recruits that I ever tracked all the way through, and always supported him. I remember all the fan days growing up. I always was trying to get first in line. I wanted to be the first person to run out and try to go to a picture or autograph with Jeremy Johnson. I still think it's so cool to watch him finally get a shot in football. Of course, it's not like the biggest league in the world. I mean, I don't think a lot of people really know what this league was until Jeremy Johnson kind of stepped into it. But back-to-back championships for Jeremy Johnson. Just huge shout to him. I will always be a Jeremy Johnson fan. So with that, going to move on to our Way Too Early preview as the Tigers get ready for their Week 2 opponent versus the Cal Golden Bears on September, and I just threw myself off, September 6th, I want to say. September 7th. There we go. I had to call myself out on what date it was. And of course, they'll be taking on Cal at 2:30 on Saturday, September 7th. There we go. 12:30 PT if you're one of the weirdos on Pacific time, but us over here in the beautiful Central Time Zone, it's going to be 2:30 p.m. But I'm very excited for this game. It's going to be I can't remember the last time Auburn took on an ACC opponent. It's been a hot minute, which is a weird thing to talk about because Cal is, of course, now an ACC team. The Cal meaning California, are moving over to the Atlantic Coastal Conference starting this year alongside Stanford and SMU. Both teams, Cal and Stanford, of course, on the Pacific side of the United States. SMU, of course, in the landlocked state of Texas. A conference realignment is a crazy, crazy thing. Of course, you're going to see a lot of movement going into this year, but Cal, of course, now a ACC school. This Cal team gave Auburn a lot of issues last year. In their first ever meeting together, Auburn won 14-10 thanks to a game-winning touchdown catch by Rivaldo Fairweather, a beautiful catch that was well worth the 2 o'clock going to bed that night. I'm just so excited to watch these. I love home and homes like this. I wish there was more of them during the season. I like the cupcake games for semantics of Auburn getting a free win, but I like whenever Auburn is having games like this, and I would love them to have more, especially teams that Auburn's ever played before. I think Auburn plays Miami next year, maybe. I could be wrong on that, but next year I think they play Miami. But I think a huge key to this game is going to be the running game. Both teams have very highly regarded, star-studded running backs. Of course, everyone knows Jarquez Hunter. If you're watching the show, you know who Jarquez Hunter is. But the Auburn fans, Jaden Knott is a guy that Auburn really is the scheme for really, really well. Scheme for him last year, still got 78 yards and got a touchdown. This was a very defensive matchup last year. Neither offenses on the quarterback side of the ball could really get anything going. Auburn surprisingly got 2 touchdown catches in that game. The first one coming from now USC Trojan, Jay Fair. But Jay Knott last year for Cal, after that Auburn game, he really picked it up. 1,300 yards on the season, picking up 12 touchdowns on the ground. He is a top 10 back in college football in every sense of the word. Cal, an up-and-coming team. At least last year they were. They got to a bowl game, I believe, for the first time in like 3 years. Thanks to Coach Wilcox, who is a defensive guy, and Cal, very solid defense last year. I could see a world where their defense kind of takes a little bit of a step back. They are returning. They're returning the 7th most starters in college football. They're returning 17 starters. They're returning 9 on defense. But a lot of the defense, I think, comes down to the fact that they are missing a lot of players in the linebacker room. With Jackson Sermon gone to the NFL, I do find it hard for the middle of that Cal defense to be as good as it was last year. Jackson Sermon, of course, gave Auburn a lot of trouble last year, one of them being what should have been a touchdown on a fumble recovery, but it was called down. Hallelujah to that. But I think that Cal's defense will take a little bit of a step back, and I know that kind of just goes against what I just said, but the defense is going to be okay. I think it's going to be a good ACC defense, but the ACC is by far the worst of the Power Four. And I'm just not on the verge to where I want to say that their defense will give Auburn too many fits. I think that an improved Auburn defense could have scored a lot more on Cal last year, which isn't saying much analytically. A better team would have scored more points. But missing out on Jackson Sermon is going to be a huge relief for Auburn. Their defense still returns 9, so look out for the guys who were there last year. And ultimately, I just think that is the key part. You want your linebacker room to be your strongest point of your defense, especially against a team that's going to be running the ball pretty heavily. I don't think Auburn's going to come out of the first 3 games throwing the ball all that much. If any of these wide receivers don't get 1,000 yards, I'll put it on the fact that I don't think Auburn's going to be throwing the ball too much in the first 3 games. If they would have come out guns a blazing, just throwing 4 verts all the time to the Freeze 4 and Robert Lewis and Keandre Lambert-Smith and all those guys, if it works, it'd be awesome. But it'd be hard for me to believe to show off that much of the playbook when you don't have to. I think Cal is still a solid team. I think they'll be a bowl game team in the ACC. I'm just not too privy on them being a team that Auburn will have to, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Have to really go all in on. Go to page 2 of the playbook. I think that Auburn. I think this game could be close in the sense that Auburn could have to, but I don't see it happening. I think Auburn made too much improvements over the offseason. And of course, this is one of the games I've already mentioned as a win several times, talking about it going into the season. I'm just too, especially with the fact that the quarterback room is a bit of a question mark for Cal. Returning starter, I believe, is Fernando Mendoza. I think that's pretty well regarded that he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Cal Golden Bears going into the season. Last year, threw for 1,700 yards with 14 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. It doesn't really run the ball that much. Kind of a one rush pony, one trick pony. Words are hard today. It is early in the morning as I'm recording this. But yeah, Fernando Mendoza, I think he's going to get the starting job over their quarterback transfer they brought in, Chandler Rogers from North Texas. I think that they made a lot of decent moves in the transfer portal. They finished 17th in the portal, finished 40th overall in recruiting for high school. But I don't see a lot of star-studded moves in the transfer portal. Of course, if they didn't have a quarterback already, Chandler Rogers could have been one. I think he was very solid for North Texas before he had to transfer out. Of course, he's a dual threat guy himself, and they might be looking for a guy to replace Sam Jackson V, who's now at Auburn University. But they did lose they lost 22 players to the portal. They gained 23. They recruited very well. They recruited not very well, but they got a bunch of depth pieces. I'm just not too. I just don't think this team is going to give Auburn too many fits. That's just kind of where I'm at. I don't want to like bug too hard about this, but it is the fact that I do think Auburn is the better team. They have more talent. I think they have a better staff. I think that the quarterback, surprisingly enough, to all Peyton Thorne haters, I think that this game heavily favors Peyton Thorne. The running backs are pretty on par with each other. Wide receivers, I think, favors Auburn. In terms of, we haven't seen what Auburn's full wide receiver room can do on the field yet altogether. We've seen at least two of the Cal receivers and their tight end in action before, but I think tight ends favor Auburn. I think wide receivers favor Auburn for potential and potential alone. Offensive line, I time will tell with that, but Auburn made a lot of improvements. If I had to give a way too early score prediction for this game, I'm kind of leading Auburn 31, Cal 14. It's kind of where I'm at with this. I just think that it being in Jordan-Hare, it being a 2:30 kick, favors everything Auburn is going to want out of this game. And of course, I'm just not too worried. And I know I probably shouldn't be saying that, but we're not at the point of the season where I'm going to start like stressing out, i.e. in not this next week because that's New Mexico, not the next week because that's Arkansas, but then the next week is Oklahoma. That's when I'll start being like, stressing out about the game. And that was a weird noise I made. I apologize for that deeply. I'm just not worried about Cal as much. And of course, I think that they have a decent. I think that their staff is really good. I like whenever Cal is good at football. I like when all of those teams are good at football. I miss the Pac-12 a lot. I can't say I love the Pac-12, but I just don't think Cal is going to be a very dangerous team for Auburn. I think that it comes down to talent acquisition, and Auburn has been doing an amazing job with that. I mean, they're already going into this recruiting cycle right now, a top 10 team. They're going to be going into the next one as a top 10 team. And Auburn, of course, got another crystal ball from Blake Woodby again, another 4-star corner. Auburn's just done the better job of acquiring talent that can be immediate impact on the field. So Cal, it's not so much. It's hard to sell Cal Berkeley to teams because Cal's a storied program, but football wise, it's been a hot minute since Aaron Rodgers been on the field. Been a hot minute since Jared Goff has been on the field. But Auburn recruited very well, picked up a lot of transfers that are going to add a lot of depth to the team. So as I said, 31-14 is where I'm at with Auburn. They'll start off the season 2-0 in my preview world. As they prepare for their upcoming game against the New Mexico Lobos. Also, of course, in Auburn. Of course, that's going to be saying a lot because 8 games are going to be played in Auburn, Alabama in 2024. So if you got your season tickets already, enjoy your games. I will be passing up on those tickets this year. I was not too privy on paying $100 for some of these games, $900 in total for some of these games. That was wild. But yeah, if you leave your predictions for Auburn and Cal, way too early predictions, that is, as we move on to the remainder of the show. It's going to be a shorter show today. I think potentially we'll get over 20 minutes. I don't know if we will or not. But before we get into the rest with softball hiring their new pitching coach, let's get into the ad read where I'm going to tell y'all to like, comment, subscribe because, why not? It doesn't take much of your time. Just again, leave your comments for your predictions for Auburn. Just leave your record prediction for Auburn as well. in the comment sections below. And of course, don't forget to like, comment. We're getting very close to 800 subscribers. Sorry, 800 subscribers. Because if we get 800, we get to go to 900. And if we get to 900, we get to go to 1,000. I would love to get to 1,000 for the start of the football season. But with all that being said, don't forget that if you've already liked, commented, and subscribed, there's other ways you can support the show as well. There is the merch. That is, of course, on thewarreport.com. You go to their shop, and, of course, it's going to be on the first page will be the College Loop Dad hat. Second page will be the Feeling Loopy t-shirt. Each of those are $25, but I could tell you myself, or I could let myself tell you from the past in a nice little commercial. So we'll be right back.
Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes, looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feeling Loopy t-shirt as well as your College Loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program.
And of course, whenever you get your merch, don't forget to go on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, whichever one, and post yourself wearing the merch. And you might get a little shout out on the show. And of course, if you tag us in it, we'll definitely see it. You can also use hashtag Feeling Loopy. That's feeling without the G. Loopy. So if you want to get noticed on the show, if you want to show off your College Loop spirit, if you're trying to show the world that you also feel loopy, post it online and we will shout you out on the show. So for the remainder of the show, we're going to be talking about a little bit of softball news. As you know, Auburn already hired their co-head coaches in Chris and Kate Malveaux. Auburn has now made their hire for their pitching coach in Riker Chason. I'm going to say Chason for right now. As the new pitching coach coming in from, as the last 10 months, he's been working as the director of pitching growth for OGX Softball in Romeo, Illinois. He has also had stops as a pitching coach for Ole Miss and LSU. He's had a lot of very good experience. He's done a lot of great Ole Miss in his second year being there. They averaged a 3.3 team ERA. Had a couple of seasons where it was around a 2. Very, very good pickup for the Malveaux. I can even go into saying some of their quotes. Chris Malveaux said, quote, "As the sport continues to grow and evolve, pitching continues to play an incredible part in successful programs. When looking for a pitching coach, we needed someone with high character, a high-level work ethic, and has the ability to build a strong pitching staff that can compete in the SEC. Riker is the one that checks all of those boxes," end quote. And then Kate Malveaux went on to say, quote, "He is an incredible teacher, extremely sharp, and truly cares about the ones that he coaches. In his time so far in the sport, he has quickly risen to the top as one of the elite developers of pitching. He has SEC experience and knows how to recruit in the Southeast. We are so fortunate that Riker agreed to come on board, and we can't wait to get started," end quote. So you got the two selling points from the coaches. I think that I think Auburn is really looking good. I think that you're returning a lot of good players already. And a lot of girls have already said they're coming back next year. I don't believe Auburn has lost anybody to the portal, to my knowledge, unless it's happened like behind me. I don't know if that's been going on behind my back or whatever, but Auburn has lost any players to the portal. Of course, you've lost Maddie Penta and Shelby Lowe and Michaela Packer to graduation. Going to be looking to replace those girls, especially losing 2 pitchers. You're going to be looking at Milena Tambora. You're going to be looking at Emma Rolfe and Annabelle Wedra and other girls in that pitching rotation to kind of take on the heavy shoes to fill of Maddie Penta and Shelby Lowe. I think there's a lot of talent still there. I think Emma Rolfe and AB and Milena have all done a really good job stepping in whenever they needed to. And I think they're going to be getting a lot of good development. I think that we missed out on some development outside of Maddie Penta and Shelby Lowe last year. You had moments where they all kind of stood out, and I think Emma Rolfe and really improved from the previous year. I think AB really improved from the previous year as well. So you did get some development, but whenever it came down to it in those big game situations, you really wanted your first two girls out there, which is going to be the case for a lot of teams. But I think it's very important to get a pitching coach that the team is going to be sold on. You've already heard several players in the Emma Rolfe really said that she loved this hire, which is really nice to hear. You want someone who can develop this talent, and of course, someone who can recruit well too. Auburn, of course, hasn't had any issues pitching in the past 4 years. It's been pretty easy going. This will be the first year. Again, 4 years that Auburn is really going to be looking at a new pitching staff, a new pitching rotation, without, of course, Miss Reliable. So I'm very interested to see how the season goes. I'm very excited for how the season is going to go. I like that the team has kind of stayed together throughout this. I think Amelia Larck is going to be returning. Nelia Peralta is going to be back. I think the whole team outside of the ones that graduated are going to be back. So very interested to see how this season's going to go. I'm so ecstatic to see a new look Auburn softball team. I love when Auburn softball is good. It sucked to kind of see how the season went last year. Of course, they made it to the postseason, which is good that's like a floor. Because I thought last year was a little bit of a wishy-washy season, but it still ended up with Auburn going to a regional. Sadly, that regional did not go as planned. I'm getting flashbacks of the end of that game, but very excited to see how the season goes. But again, shorter show today, 22, 23 minutes, depending on when. Of course, I'm Dylan Larck. I would take on Twitter. Of course, you find me on Instagram as well at Dylan Larck at DYLENLARCK. And of course, you find me right here in the College Loop podcast, where you should like, comment, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts on Auburn's week 2 opponent against Cal. Leave your thoughts on Riker Chasen, whatever you want. If you want to give me a pronunciation guide for it, that will work too. And of course, if you're loving the show but you hate my face, there's the audio version of the show as well on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, of course, Amazon Music. And of course, you can find us all on social media at the College Loop. It's going to be on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the works, all of those at the College Loop. Especially if you want to get the daily countdown of how many days to Auburn football. I believe today is going to be 81 days. 81 days to Auburn football. 74 days till college football. So if you like week 0 like I do, if you're a sicko, only 74 days till football. So I'm very excited to see how the season comes up. Gonna be excited to watch all of college football. Football season, we might try to cover a lot of have a lot more coverage of all the other sports, the SEC as well. So stay tuned for that. So again, with all that being said, thanks for tuning in. War Eagle, and of course, this has been the College Loop podcast. As it's a tradition at this point that I just don't have the outro ready to go. This has been the College Loop podcast.